Okay, my name's Joshua Branham, and here's my audience, my lovely sister, my mom, and my dad. Okay, let's get set up here, make sure you can see me. All right, without further ado. When I was a boy, I spent a lot of my summers up at my great-grandparents'. When I was there, my great-grandmother would take us to various plots, and we would pick produce and bring it back to the house. And as a group, we'd go through it and pull bad stuff out, trim the stems, and process it and get it ready for canning, which is one of my favorite parts and something I'd like to share with you today. So before I get going on this, I'm going to share a little bit about the general overall so that you understand what I'm talking about when I am talking about the canning. And then I'm going to cover the water bath method of canning. There's another method, pressure canning, but I'm not going to cover that today. So, some things you need to know when you go to start canning is that sanitation is key. Keep everything clean, clean all your work area, all your utensils, and the vessel you're going to be using. And speaking of which, the vessel for water bath canning is nothing more than a pot with a bottom rack to keep the jars from bouncing and breaking during the process. Then you'll have what they call a jar lifter. The jar lifter is a clamp device to pick the jars in and out of the hot canning vessel. Aside from that, the only other real terms that you need to know would be headspace, and that is the area between the jar, right here, between the rim and the top of the jar. You'll have your filled product inside. It's that air gap. It's very specific in all the recipes, and you really want to bounce your recipes off of the United States Department of Agriculture canning guide, no matter what it is. And make sure that the recipe you're using is tried and true. That way there's no food safety issues. Now, the actual method of water bath canning is able to can high acid foods. That's very important. They have to be high acid foods because botulinum toxins or bacteria and spores cannot survive in those acidic environments. If it's low acid foods, you're going to have to use the pressure canning. Now, we'll go ahead and get on to the steps involved in water bath canning. So first and foremost, what you're going to want to do is get your water into the vessel and make sure that it covers your cans by 1 to 2 inches. So the easiest way to do that is go ahead and apply your lids and your rings to some empty canning material or jars, whichever jars you decide to use. Place them in your vessel, hold them down with your hand, make sure it's the same amount of jars you're going to use when you start canning, and fill it 1 to 2 inches above that. Pull your jars out, make sure that you didn't leave anything inside of the canning vessel, and go ahead and bring that up to whatever temperature you're going to be using. For a cold setting, which is you're putting cold vegetables into the jars, adding lukewarm water and cooking within the canning process, you would turn it up to 140 degrees. If you're doing hot setting where everything's already cooked and you're just adding that to warm jars, you're going to go ahead and bring that up to 180 degrees. Now you're going to place all of your jars into there. Once they're filled, the rims are wiped off, the caps are on, and the rings are finger tight into your vessel of your heated water. Okay? After you get everything in there that you're going to use for this canning operation, you'll go ahead and turn that heat up slowly and let it slowly adjust so you don't risk fracturing any of your jars. Once you hit your target temperature, you're going to go ahead and wait a minute. Let it stabilize there. Once it's stabilized for 1 minute, you will start your time duration from that point on. Once you've hit the end of your duration, you'll go ahead and shut the heat off. Once the heat's off, you'll just let it go ahead and coast down to room temperature. After you've gotten to room temperature, once again, use your jar lifter to get it out in case you fracture a jar, you don't injure yourself. You want to set those jars in a kind of an area with no draft so they can just settle out for 12 to 24 hours. After the 12 to 24 hour period, you'll go ahead and remove the rings and check to make sure that you can see that concave in the lid. If you can see that, it's a pretty good indicator that it's sealed. Upon doing so, grab the side of the lid a little bit, give it a little tug. Nothing moves. Go ahead and label your jars and put them in a dark, dry place. Now, we've covered the general need to knows when it comes to water bath canning, and then we covered some of the steps there. If you have any doubts, always refer to the USDA. Okay? And finally, make sure that when in doubt, you throw it out. Don't eat bad food.